keep in mind, Putin is reported to have personally ordered mercenary groups to try and assassinate Zelensky. Thus far, they have not succeeded. At the same time, President Biden this week scheduled to fly to Europe to meet with allies. Is there anything he can do or say to turn this catastrophe around? Let's meet tonight's party panel. We've got the co-host of the Gary and Shannon Show on KFI AM 640 in Los Angeles. Gary Hoffman is here with a beautiful vista behind him. We've got Democrat strategist, radio host, and Fox News contributor also in the City of Angels, Leslie Marshall is back, and 2020 Libertarian Party vice presidential candidate. He is the enfant terrible of freedom. It is Spike Cohen. Welcome, everyone. Gary.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Thank you. So good to talk to you. So Russia is saying they will stop the bombardment of Mariupol if they wave white flags, and then they will allow 2 civilian escape corridors, one of which leads directly to Russia. So far, the Ukrainians have said absolutely not. What do they know, and why are they not surrendering?
Well, they know it's an absolutely futile move on their part to throw in the white flag, because this is not going to stop Vladimir Putin. It appears that whatever plan A was for Vladimir Putin failed miserably about 96 hours into the invasion. So whatever plan B looks like, it just looks like a hellscape, as you see in Mariupol or Kharkiv, or soon on the outskirts of Kyiv, where they're just blasting buildings indiscriminately, basically, whether it's the shopping mall. I think that's an image there of the shopping mall that went up, or apartment buildings, or art schools, or theaters. I mean, there's no reason for the Ukrainians to believe that the Russians are going to quit anytime soon, even if they did surrender. I mean, I feel like one of the wild cards in all of this is Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who has said that it looks like the Russians have pulled back from their demand that Zelensky step down from power, and that the Ukrainians have even said, hey, we may even give up our quest for NATO membership. If, in fact, the Israeli Prime Minister is right, then that is a significant move in the right direction, at least for a diplomatic solution to all of this.
All right, so Gary, do you think that Israel is the best peace broker, or does the U.S. still hold the diplomatic cards?
Well, Israel is the only one that is being talked to by both sides right now. I don't think Emmanuel Macron has taken a call from Vladimir Putin for a couple of weeks now, and he was really the last Western leader that was in contact with him.
Yes, and he told him to wear a $14,000 puffer coat to a massive rally, and that was horrible advice. So, Leslie, what should our president do as he meets with leaders in Poland and Brussels this week? What should he say, and what can the U.S. offer at this point that will actually move the needle? Because, we're hearing from the Institute for the Study of War and others that Russia is, they are so demoralized, and they're having their own supply chain issues with their military, that they're 2 weeks away from an actual stalemate in Ukraine. So what can our president do?
Well, a few things. I mean, with the country of Poland, who is just have so many refugees, and certainly that is a difficulty to the economy of Poland. The United States can not only help with that, but there are some refugees who would prefer to come to the United States as opposed to stay in Europe, and the president is supposed to discuss that and how that would come about. But additionally, in addition to the $800 million and the specific weapons, very high-tech weapons that we sent to Ukraine, and our allies did as well most recently, what the next steps are, knowing that you're dealing with a madman who knows he's losing, is desperate, and that is very dangerous. It's also one of the reasons the United States and our allies have said no to a no-fly zone. You can't have a no-fly zone light, and they're very concerned about what Vladimir Putin would do with regard to nuclear weapons. And still, just miles from the border of Poland, a NATO nation, even though NATO troops are at the ready. I think it's looking at plans A, B, C, D, E with our allies based on what this individual does. I mean, President Zelensky has said he wants a no-fly zone. The United States is not alone in saying that could prompt a World War III with Vladimir Putin.
All right, so Spike, with the help of Russia and the United States in 1994, Ukraine obviously gave up their nuclear stockpile. Should they try and get it back now?
No backsies, unfortunately.
Dang.
Especially since it was actually the Russian government that they gave it to finally in 1996. And by the way, every country that is watching this is seeing that nuclear non-proliferation means allow the larger countries to bomb or invade you at will, and you have no real ability to do anything to stop them other than hope that you can rally the troops from other countries, which probably will want to stay out of it because they're nuclear powers, which is exactly why we're not getting into this. I think what's happened is that it's clear that the Russian invasion didn't go as swimmingly as they thought they would, and so now they're moving on to just bombardment. I think if the U.S. government, if the Biden administration really wanted to put an end to this, they need to give Putin an out. He needs to be able to go back to his country and say, well, as a result of this military operation, special operation, we got these concessions. And that concession could simply be, we want to work on step-by-step de-escalation that both sides are doing, that can be verified by both sides, to work towards a normalization of relationships, and that can start as soon as you pull out of Ukraine. What worries me is that I think instead we're going to end up finding out that U.S. intelligence and military are doing in Ukraine what they did in Afghanistan when Russia invaded there, try to make this into Russia's Iraq. And if you'll recall, that led to the creation of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban.
Absolutely,
and I hate to think
right.
what would happen
it so far
in
hasn't
Ukraine,
ended well. Yes, and it could happen for a long time. And unfortunately, all the people who are really excited about a hot war are really, really bad at the long game. And that's what terrifies me, is the unintended consequences don't occur to these people who are supposedly brilliant military strategists or, armchair dum-dums who don't know what they're talking about, who have no idea how easy it is to get into something that is so protracted, that kills so many people and, all the while destroys prosperity, because there are a lot of people in Russia right now who want money. They don't want to be billionaires. They want to put food on the table. They want to buy toilet paper. They don't want to stand in line for 2 hours to get a loaf of bread. So, yes, and hopefully there are enough rational people left in the world, at least 4 of them, who will get that back on track. Panel's going to stay right here. Much more with them coming up. Breaking news from the New York Times, but don't expect to hear it from them directly. After 2 years pushing a Russian disinformation claim about Hunter Biden's notorious laptop, the Times quietly admitted they authenticated the laptop and its contents. How weird. In other words, they did journalism. Earlier today on Fox, former Attorney General Bill Barr said he was, quote, shocked, I say, by President Biden's lies and the media's cover-up. So will liberal outlets ever acknowledge their own disinformation campaign? Will the president be held accountable for covering up his son's shady dealings? The party panel is back. Gary Hoffman, Leslie Marshall, Spike Cohen. Wholly unsurprising, Gary. A lot of people got it wrong. They didn't want it to be true. But now that they know it is, pretty much everyone is coming out with mea culpa, right?
Yeah, it would be wonderful if they did a mea culpa. Politicians, sports figures, actors, celebrities, and of course the New York Times. Nobody comes out and says, hey, we completely screwed this up. We thought Tom Brady was going to retire for good. Oh, I'm sorry, Hunter Biden's laptop. I thought that was the same story. It's about the same believability, perhaps.
And Gisele Bündchen is behind all of it, oddly enough. So, 2014, Hunter Biden gets this big, fat, plum paycheck from Ukraine, from an energy company. And now there's a war in Ukraine with Russia. How weird. And so much of it revolves around energy. So what is it about the Bidens in Russia and Ukraine, Leslie?
Well, we're going to blame the war for Vladimir Putin invading a nation that he's had his heart set on reclaiming to be Russia since before some of us were born, on Hunter Biden. That's funny in a stretch. Let's talk about the journalist. Washington Post, which is not considered to be a right-wing media outlet, in October of 2020, they broke the story. New York Times, every other outlet, we're not doing journalism 101. You're right on that, Kennedy. They should have done their journalistic integrity, their due diligence, and they should should have checked to see if the story was accurate, even though it did seem wonky. A guy's got a computer. He gives it to Rudy Giuliani because nobody picks it up, and Rudy Giuliani gives it to the New York Post, which is certainly not considered to be a left-leaning, journalistic outlet as well. So I think the journalists were completely wrong here, but I don't think, and I know there was one poll that would disagree with me, that it would have an outcome as to Joe Biden not being president at the end. I don't think it would change the outcome of the election.
Suspended the New York Post, would not allow them to post or retweet anything because they said that they had published hacked information. But so, Spike, I will ask you, since Leslie completely dodged the question, isn't there something weird about the Bidens, energy, Russia, and Ukraine, and the fact that we are all seeing this come to the fore right now while Joe Biden is president?
Well, first of all, what if the plot twist is that the New York Times is also Russian disinformation? Ooh. But no, to go back to your question, I think that Joe Biden is not the only one who has a child who has been employed by Burisma and other Ukrainian energy companies. I don't think we'll even know for many more years just how much cloak and dagger there is there and how much back deals there are there. Energy is the main thing that flows between Russia and Western Europe, much of it through Ukraine. So that would make perfect sense that there's all sorts of skullduggery happening there. Back to your original question as to, is there going to be any accountability here? Absolutely not. No. Nothing that came up on the laptop. Hunter Biden, even if he is prosecuted for something, his father happens to be president. He will absolutely pardon him, and the media will say, well, it's his son, so, why wouldn't he do that? So no one's going to be held accountable. Surprise, surprise.
Codependency is a hell of a drug. Meanwhile, Bloomberg News getting slammed for a comically out-of-touch op-ed about coping with inflation. Some life hacks suggested in the article: Americans making under $300 grand a year should eat lentils instead of meat. Stop taking their pets to the vet. Take the bus instead of driving, and stop buying in bulk. For some reason, I didn't get that one. The op-ed is being called elitist, obnoxious, and insulting. So how did Bloomberg get so snobby, Gary?
I don't know. Listen, it's tone deaf. It's really hard to believe that anybody who makes under $300,000 a year would even deign to read the words at a Bloomberg. Just go back to financial literacy. Don't spend outside your means, no matter how much money you have, period. I would have saved that woman 1,000 words of writing.
But if you have over $300,000 in your salary per year, you can have the meats. If not, then you get to eat the whistleberries and hold your dying dog. Leslie?
Question.
You're good. Very funny. I thought, speaking of funny, I thought the piece was supposed to be comical. And when I realized it wasn't supposed to be comical, I was shocked. I just think it's terrible when anybody, I don't care what your political affiliation is, and honestly, I don't care how much money you have, when you just talk down your nose at the little people, because I guess those of us who make under $300,000 a year are pretty little and have to eat our lentils.
Disgusting. And Stephen Colbert is like, I don't mind if gasoline is $30 a gallon. I'll pay it. Your thoughts, Spike?
Thank you. So in the original tweet where they were promoting the article, the final bullet point on things that people could do was simply, no one said this was going to be easy, which I think should actually be the Biden-Harris 2024 re-election campaign slogan. No one said this was going to be easy. The interesting thing here is, someone mentioned, that people should live within their means. If the federal government was living within its means, instead of having the Federal Reserve print out trillions of new notes every year to pay off the debts for all this stimulus spending that they've been doing, we wouldn't be dealing with the hyperinflation or the out-of-control inflation that we're dealing with right now. And it's interesting because much of the inflationary spending that happened that is leading to the inflation that we're seeing now happened under Donald Trump. Yep, and yet Democrats and the liberal media won't talk about that because they supported it 100%, and it's the entire Biden agenda is to continue that policy of out-of-control federal debt spending and the Federal Reserve money printer going brrr endlessly and just creating more notes and more inflation and more stimulus spending. So no one said it was going to be easy, and no one said it was going to end either. I think it's just going to keep getting worse until we have libertarians take over everything.
Yes! Hallelujah! Spike Cohen with the win. Taxation is theft, and the Fed.
Yes.
And Build Back Bullspit. But you got to substitute a different letter. You are absolutely right. And by the way, deficits are the new surplus. We can't save any money unless we spend all the money. So hopefully they'll do that really soon. Leslie, are you going to vote for Joe Biden in 2024?
Most likely. I am a Democrat. I'll probably vote for a Democrat because I agree with my party's policies. Yes, most likely. I have to see who else is running. But you guys will vote against him anyway, right? I guess I could ask the same question.
Yeah, because I'm voting for either Spike Cohen or Dave Smith. It's who I'm voting for because I'm a god-darn American, all right? I bleed red, white, and blue. That means I have a vitamin deficit. All right, party panel, thank you so much. Gary, Leslie, and Spike.